POC examples. And I have a couple of those, and I'm just going to be careful with names and so forth. It works. Okay, so right here today, and I'm all over the floor if anyone wants to come and take. I'm going to do a couple stuff from Radius's point of view, and then Steve's going to do a couple things from MediaLink, showing some products there. These were outlined in the summit in March. It's going to go into a little more detail than where they stand. And again, if anyone else has anything, absolutely happy to take that. This is a round table there. So now I am talking Radius's products. So this is an example of a product for the spec. Basically, this is our product is DC Engine. That is a family name. Within DC Engine, there are different pieces, but DC Engine is a rack level product. So we're delivering solutions with this infrastructure. Now, from a Radius's point of view, we're not a pure play, right? We're not a big manufacturer. We use partnerships, but we brought the architecture. We're bringing some products here. We have a lot of partnerships for what goes inside there, and we're very transparent. So when we work with a carrier and say, here it is, I'm going to say that it's not a black box. Ironically, it is black and it looks like a box, but it's a system. If we have a sled inside there that came from someone else, it could have been directly purchased by the carrier from that other vendor. This is like one of the sourcing strategies, or it could come through Radius. But there's very few cases where we would hide what's in there. Again, we're very open. Okay, so anyway, that's DC Engine. That's just a picture. I think that's probably a real picture of this thing somewhere. So where are we right now? Those of you who were on, I think, a call we did, probably was our last one, we went through some of our stuff. I'll say it one more time, hopefully this makes sense. We're contributing a couple of SKUs, you can see them there. So it's a rack, a half-wide compute sled, and a full-wide storage sled. Those are just, they're not standards, they're just products. There will be many more. We even have some other flavors. The other thing is we're contributing them, and I'm a little embarrassed by this, but I'll just explain it. It is what it is, and I think it's fine, because I think they're coming in at the inspired level, not because we're trying to hold anything back, because we just didn't have all the ducks in order to have it. And I admire MediaLink did get their ducks in order. To have a fully approved spec, you got to have a bit more stuff there. We got to do quite complete contribution. We're going to make sure that aligns with the spec that is the reference spec. In our case, we had a couple things we just couldn't pull together. Our intent is to follow up with that. So again, we're keeping it very open. But we thought it would be at least put your money where your mouth is. Get some products out. This thing exists. You can go buy this stuff. And that's very important for OCP. That's where it's very, very different than standards. Right? Standards, you go, you do them, way before you have products. Here, you kind of have products first. Right? So that's it. I just quickly go. What do these look like? That's a rack with some stuff in it. I think that's the wider rack. So you can see. We call it the rack core, is the thing inside the rack, but there's a frame around it, and we do have two different sizes. So the one that we're contributing here is the wider one that is narrower. So it's a little wider, a little narrower. Why is it wider? Because to allow it to be shallower. To allow it to be shallower, you need a little bit of room for some stuff, and the extra width was handy. It was also our first generation. We have worked on a way to get that much slimmer in terms of the breadth, and then it got a little deeper. As I said, the spec allows other variations as well. So I mentioned 600 and 800 millimeter wide options. The 800 is what's shown there. Again, at the inspired level, there's a lot of pieces here, and there's a lot of details to those pieces, not going into them, but definitely expecting it to be in a DC power environment as well as an AC. So we see both of those. In fact, we're seeing kind of three flavors of power. We're certainly seeing kind of standard data center AC power, 240 volts. We're seeing 48 volt DC, which should have been listed there because that's certainly an option. And then we're also seeing high voltage DC, which I think has been discussed in the community a little bit, so 400 volt DC. All of those are done at the rack level, and then you're bringing it down and you're providing the 12 volts. So it's not that hard to change these things. Okay, that's the rack. There's another flavor, so we're actually putting both of these SKUs in as again, reference contributions. This is just a small one. This one is actually, we started it as a 16U. I think it was kind of ill-conceived, but it's worked out. Like, somebody thought, hey, this would be a great thing to take to trade shows and demo, and You can't carry this in a suitcase. I mean, this, even 16U is massive, okay? But with that said, I don't know, for those of you who were at the OCP Summit, we did bring it there. It is easier to put on a trade show floor than a big one, and it looks nice. That's all fine, that's kind of marketing. There's real deployment. I'll show you in some of the cases later. There's cases where this smaller rack is actually a pretty good size, and they come to some of this more constrained environments. It's less so in the space. If you can fit 1/3 of a rack, why not go to the ceiling, right? But there are some things where we define in that 16U space that just fit an application very nicely. Some of these you'll see are around some edge applications where you're saying, look, this defines a certain size CO for a certain number of users, you know, a certain amount of termination equipment, a certain amount of compute that goes with that, and the whole thing fits very nicely in 16U. Well, here's the solution. Okay, so we have had some questions of how small do you go. I think that's an open question. This is a web scale technology, so I don't feel like it should go super small. But people say, hey, that's great. I'm going to count on my software running on this. What if I just need to deploy a couple of servers? Well, if this is sort of ubiquitous technology, fine. Just I have a slide to do that. But until right now, the ecosystem isn't that big, and so if you're going to put one sled of carrier grade open rack, anywhere, you need a rack, and so that's your minimum size right now until somebody comes up with something small, because you can't take that sled and just shove it into, you do need some infrastructure. Okay. So anyway, that's the other rack. So it wouldn't take too long. Some slides, pictures of them. So we have two. Again, these are these are shipping and deployed. Half width, and Steve will show some variations of that where get inside and actually define it further. This one is kind of a block box inside, so it just interoperates per the spec. It takes a pair of servers stacked. So you got two independent servers that sit inside of the sled. They share power, they share cooling, they share thermals, but they're otherwise independent connectivity. And that's smaller block box. And then the bottom one is a storage, and there's lots of improvements that can be done there. I know this work is going on. People here from the storage community, no end of variation of what you can do there. This one's very simple. It's a bunch of disks with a server, and it's been deployed. Okay, Steve, you want to show a couple? So also in the summit, I think Jeff Sharp is there.
See if I can play this one. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. For anyone who knows Jeff Sharp, I know I'm not Jeff Sharp. Okay. How many people in the room know Jeff Sharp? Oh, quite a few. Good. Well, Jeff sends his apologies, but he's not too sad because he's on the beach in North Carolina for a week. So we probably all wish to be with him if we can. Anyway, I'm not a CTO guy, okay, so I'm not going to be giving you a product pitch or a technology pitch. But I'm going to be using Jeff's slides to try and introduce some questions that we think we know the answer to, and some questions that we know we don't know the answers to. Okay? And that's just sort of a bit of a preamble leading into maybe the topic of the panel session as well in terms of procurement, ecosystem, and so on. But we'll come back to that in a second. First question is, how many people in the room have a purely technical role, and how many people have more of a technical business sort of mixed role? So first of all, who's purely technical? Okay, so minority business aspect as well. Okay, so majority, that's good. So I'm pleased about that because I'm not going to be talking purely technically here. All right, so using the slides primer. My name is Steve Jennis. I'm the head of marketing for AD-Link globally. So this is just one of many areas of responsibility that I have. So I'm going to talk to some extent in a more general sense, rather than just purely carrier-grade telecoms hardware. Okay, so please feel free to interrupt and ask any questions that might pop up. But the essence of this is to introduce what AD-Link is doing in support of OCP, and that, I think, is one of the questions we feel we know the answer to. We're 100% committed to open specifications, 100% committed to vendor ecosystem, 100% committed to disaggregation of these solutions, and as such, 100% committed to giving the end customer, the carrier or whoever, more choice and lower cost in the way that they acquire, build, and deploy and install their systems and maintain. Okay, so here's what we're doing in the product sense of supporting OCP. So the high-level view of this open sled area, what we wanted to do, in line with Radisys and the open rack concept, is to produce a specification for the sled or the modules that will plug into this environment. And have many of you heard of MECO, the term MECO before? Yeah, quite a few, right? Well, we had to dump that, I'm afraid. We ran into some trademarking issues with the company in Germany, MECO, so we've actually rebranded the architecture now as Sarah, and the first two letters of that acronym actually stand for Open Compute, so we're actually leveraging the fact that this specification has now been accepted by the OCP. So Open Compute, carrier grade, edge reference architecture. So that's what it stands for. Open Compute, carrier grade, edge reference architecture. So I hope that makes sense, but I'll talk more about our definition of edge in a few minutes. So we built this specification. It's been offered, donated to the OCP, and has now been accepted as a specification. We built product around this specification you will see about now. So yes, we're committed to the specifications concept. We're committed to building product. We're committed to the idea of the market evolving in terms of disaggregation, as Andrew mentioned several times, and the ability to plug and play various technologies which can evolve at their own pace into end-to-end solutions. Okay, so great concept, technically challenged, but also solutions are possible. I personally have a 25-year background in software, so I know quite a bit about the benefits and disadvantages of open source licensing of software and the support thereof. It ain't easy to plug and play software from different vendors into a system that requires very high levels of SLA and robustness and reliability. Same on the hardware side. So there's nothing new under the sun here, right? We're talking about basically assembling end-to-end solutions with multi-vendor technologies ranging from Intel chips all the way up to management software packages and 24/7 support. So what we're trying to do here at the product level is enable the end customers to benefit from more choice and lower costs without losing the carrier grade quality of the end solution end to end. And so the market opportunity here is enormous because end users hate being locked in to slow, inflexible, expensive vendors, and they have no choice. They just have to keep going along. So from the end customer's perspective, at a very high level, commercial level, the benefits of openness, the benefits of standardization, the benefits of multi-vendor are very obvious. Okay, it's a cost, it's a time element, it's without threatening quality. So yes, good question.
Do you have an estimation for 10?
Sorry,
Do you have an estimation for 10?
the size of the market, you mean? Okay. No, to be quite honest. The trouble with formalizing any sort of market size is, first of all, defining what that market is. Right? And my personal definition of market is any set of customers with essentially similar requirements. Okay. Now, in this particular world, that's becoming more and more difficult because the component technologies can be deployed in so many different ways. That you can have telecom markets, intelligent transportation, data centers, industrial IoT. Essentially, the same technologies can be packaged and deployed in all those markets. So how do you define a market? You define it by product specification, by vertical application, by channel. Okay, so I'm sorry I'm making a sort of fairly simple question and a very complicated answer, but maybe we could take it offline and talk a little bit more about what you mean by market in the TAM, because that really defines. So, anyway, bottom line, big enough, all right? And anyone who's been involved in a startup and the corporate world like myself, the only thing that matters about market is big enough, right, at the end of the day. Okay, so essentially here we're trying to enable any customers to benefit from more choice and lower cost without sacrificing quality, time to market. That sounds easy, but it is very challenging, as we'll come to see. But some of the basic aspects of doing that are in terms of common view of specifications, common view of features and functions, and common view of what an ecosystem needs to represent, and what channels to market are required to support the delivery of the ecosystem of products in an end-to-end systems environment. Okay, so here's the product. As I said, I'm not going to give you a product pitch. You can have a copy of the slides, take them away, let Jeff know if you have any questions. But essentially, it's the stuff that plugs into Andrew's stuff, right? Simple as that, right? And what we're trying to do is to provide a SLED specification that is open in itself. So we're disaggregating the SLED as well as disaggregating the box. So as you'll see later on, there's certain zones. You can see the zones here on the right hand side, zone 1 through zone 5. Again, self-contained to a sense, in a sense, that allow for innovation, evolution of the technology within those zones, but still within a compatible package for deployment. Okay, and with obviously with interfaces, external interfaces that align with the other mandatory elements like the map itself. Okay. So in terms of market, and we can get back to the TAM question here, you know, it's everywhere, right? I mean, it's really, really hard nowadays to segment market opportunities to say that that is a standalone business opportunity. Everything's connected to everything else. And it's true in industrial IoT, it's true in virtual CPE, mobile edge computing, ETSI, or multi-access edge computing now. So all of these markets or use cases represent market opportunity. So it's big enough, is for sure. Okay, and what we're focusing on, one common aspect of most of them, is that they exist at the edge of what we might call traditional networks. Okay? So AD-Link as a whole has rebranded itself recently around the term leading edge computing, which play on words, obviously leading edge computing, but also leading edge computing. And edge computing is where we're taking the company. We want to provide the solutions at the edge of networks. Now that doesn't just mean the edge of a telecom network, okay? Because the network is in the eye of the beholder. And if you're an IT guy, it's the corporate network. If you're an OT guy, it's the factory floor network. If you're a telecom guy, it's the 4G network, okay? So the edge is anywhere where you compute at the edge of or between these networks. So IT, OT interface, CT, IT interface, or CT, OT interface. And these interfaces between these worlds is really the Wild West right now. If you're a marketing guy, it's where the opportunity exists. It's the Wild West of computing. Is in these boundaries between traditional worlds. Now, if you're talking to an IT guy from a data center and you're talking to an OT guy from an oil refinery, you're not going to get the same view of data. Okay? And then you talk to the telecom guy, and you get another view. You get another view of the culture. You get another view of the vendor ecosystem. You get another view of an installed base or a legacy environment. Okay, so the opportunity at the edge here is quite interesting, also a little bit scary, but a lot of money is pouring in to edge computing right now because everybody wants a piece of the action. Okay, if you're a telecom company, you want a piece of the action at the edge. You want to play in the edge. You want to play in the industrial IoT, IoT, supporting IoT devices. If you're an IT guy, if you're IBM or Oracle, Google maybe, Facebook, you want a piece of the action at the edge. As cloud services are complemented with edge services, what some people call fog computing, you want a piece of that action. Cisco definitely wants a piece of that action. Dell definitely wants a piece of that action. So you're getting edge. Everyone's converging on the edge. If you go into the factory and you talk to Rockwell Automation or Siemens or Schneider Electric, they want a piece of the action at the edge because they see that as the northbound interface from their factory network up to the IT or CT world. Okay? And they want to follow their data. They want to follow their data from the machine up to the cloud. So boundary condition, opportunity, edge computing, big space for people to grow businesses and to take market share from new opportunities because there aren't any traditional suppliers that dominate that space, unlike in OT, IT, and CT. So edge platforms are what we're about, and you'll increasingly see AD-Link's focus tightening around edge computing. We already have a lot of products relevant to a lot of IT and CT related applications here, and you can see a few of them across the top.
Steve, just for clarity, on that page, the bottom one is OCP contributed. That's the only one on that page. So
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Obviously, it takes time to evolve your product lines to embrace new specifications, and over time, we anticipate all of our products for these applications will migrate to OCP compliant specifications. Okay, so I've talked about edge computing enough. I think it's really, as I said, it's the Wild West of computing right now, where everyone wants a piece of the action, and nobody wants to give up that opportunity. So it's an exciting place to be. Coming back to ecosystem and some of the questions that we don't know the answers to. I talked about, we're happy with the specs, we're happy with the product, happy with it evolving, happy with the general concept of ecosystems to provide end-to-end solutions. But when you start to look into that in detail, it becomes super scary. Right? You've got so many different standards organizations, so many different industry consortia, so many different vendors with power over the users to some extent because of lock-in. I mean, we're all familiar with Windows lock-in, right? How many years ago was it when there was an open source version of Windows? Right? 20, 25, and we're still all locked into Windows to some extent. So these things don't change overnight. And in the software world, it's probably even worse than in the hardware world in terms of lock-in, because people are scared stiff of their software systems stopping working. Okay. So we have to address this in a new way. And I was talking to Dirk on Friday. Hi Dirk, shout out. Thanks for the breakfast. Very nice. We both live in Houston, so we've got something in common as well as OCP. But the point here is that the technology in terms of specifications and product availability is only a small part of the problem. If you're going to grow a business, and most people in this room put their hand up when I mentioned the business side of it. If you're going to grow a business, you have to think about the value chain from the technology through to the end deployed supported system. And that's the big area of unknown in this new world of open systems. We don't know 5 years from now what market share the traditional TEMs are going to maintain. We don't know what the procurement models of the carriers or operators are going to be at that point in time. We don't know what solution providers are going to emerge on a global scale to deliver and support these multi-vendor deployments. And we don't know which technology is going to win, which technologies maybe fail. We talked about management solutions and how they are a double-edged sword, right? They lock you in. You might become very vendor dependent. You might give the incumbent all the market power because nothing can change without their agreement. They threaten the customer with, it won't work. I don't trust it. I don't believe it. And sometimes I talk about the two rooms in the same building. In one room, you have the technical guys, all like us, sitting together and nodding and agreeing, this would be great, let's move on this road. And then the other end of the corridor, you have the suits in there with the procurement manager and the CEO signing the next $500 million order with a traditional vendor because they're just worried about risk. There's just no way they're going to try the new technical solution because of the threat to their business model. You know, one system fall over or one academic failure, and they're screwed. Okay, so we have to get from the technical room to the business room with this concept. We have to understand how we get down the corridor to the room where the big bucks are being sold. So I'm not interested in $2 million, $3 million, $4 million proofs of concept when my competitor is signing a $500 million deployment deal for the next generation. Okay, so we have to think about the business opportunity in those terms, at least from my perspective. And I think there's a big role for the OCP to play here in having a parallel initiative to the technical initiative, looking at procurement models from the operators and the carriers and the end customers, and the channel to market evolution that is needed to support those new procurement models, and issues like backward compatibility and vendor locking and the market power of the incumbents. How all that needs to play together to facilitate faster, lower cost, multi-vendor solutions versus the black box traditional incumbents. solution. So that's one thing I was talking to Dirk about, that maybe we could get some sort of momentum behind that concept of the market dynamics as opposed to the technical dynamics. And I think that's part of the subject for the panel discussion as well. Okay, so we all know how complex this is. So I mentioned earlier, one of the questions we do know the answer to is how important are open architectures? Absolutely fundamental for the future. Whether that's open source, open specification, open interfaces, whatever, openness is good. Okay, so this is our Radisys AD-Link joined at the hip slide. Okay, we have designed our sled and the Ocera architecture to support OCP principles and also support implementations of other OCP initiatives, such as Radisys. So just one more comment on this slide. Where are we going? We talk about disaggregation, right? About breaking down end-to-end systems into the important components. Okay, and that's good, of course, but nobody ever buys half a cup, right? There's a certain aggregate size of technology that makes sense for the market. Okay, you're not going to sell too many car engines to the consumer. Maybe a few hobbyists. Okay, but your market for your engines are 15, 20 global automotive manufacturers. Right, so disaggregation in itself can be good. It can also be bad. If your solution becomes subcritical, you've disaggregated too far. Right? So that's another part of the conversation about, from the end user perspective and the channel perspective, what is the right aggregation technologies to provide a really useful ROI on that purchase. Okay, so disaggregation is sort of a spectrum, but we have to find the points on that spectrum where we have aggregated bundles of technology that can be deployed and plugged in and work with the confidence of the end customer. Okay, so when we talk about this combo, I don't know if most customers are going to buy our sleds and go racks, or both, or build their own sled, or build their own rack, or say that these two together is still not enough. I need the software. I need the software solution, and I need the 24/7 support for the whole solution. So that's another question for the channel issue. Is what is the right packaging of all these technologies to stimulate, spur, high growth in this new market? And of course, the carriers have a huge part of that conversation because they have to be able to answer what they're comfortable with and which integrators they're going to use to put those solutions together and deploy them and support them. Right, so again, there's lots of detail here. A copy of the slides will be available to anyone. Jeff will be available next week to anyone who wants to talk about the detail. Here's the disaggregation within the sled, if you like, in terms of the zonal side of the specification and how we built that. And here's just another view, top down, of the slide. So these products are essentially available in sample size, sample volumes right now. So this isn't a slide where we can deliver you hardware conforming to this specification. We've sort of been holding back a little bit because we really wanted the OCP endorsement. Because before that, this was a proprietary spec. Now it's to some extent an open standard. Okay, and plenty of futures down the road on the product roadmap here. Notice the point at the bottom there, cross-pollination of different standards initiatives, or not standards, actually different consortia. Here we have TIP and CORD, OCP. I came across a new one last week, Open-19. I don't know how relevant that's going to be or not. But you know, there's dozens of these things, but you have to pick again in terms of aggregating the right solution size. How many specs do you need to get to a solution? You know, that's a good question, right? How many specs do you need to get to a solution that a customer's going to buy? Right? And if you disaggregate to the point that the specification is really not that useful, except to half a dozen techies in the world, you've missed the target. You've gone too small. Okay, so looking at cross-pollination or aggregation of specifications, as well as technologies. So we've got the alliance concept. We're fully behind that. We can't do this by ourselves anymore than a much bigger company can. I saw that OCP was originally founded with Facebook. Well, if they couldn't afford to do it themselves, then we're certainly not going to be big enough to do that ourselves. So alliances are key. Now, another point here in terms of our commitment, one thing I'm 100% sure of is that end customers are going to want to see end-to-end solutions working before they make big commitments. Now that can be in their own lab, okay, it could be in our lab, it could even be in an OCP facility. And I was talking to Dirk again on Friday morning about potentially opening up our labs to OCP experiments or OCP partnerships. We have a lab in Shanghai. We shortly have a lab in San Jose. We're talking about an East Coast lab by the end of the year and a European lab by the end of the year. And we're also working with Wind River in terms of entertaining labs around the world as well to get synergy with those. So we will have a number of geographically dispersed labs that can be available for OCP project work. So please bear that in mind as well. We don't want to make those labs proprietary in any sense. We want them to open to the world. So software, 25 years of my life, at least on software, and you know, plugging together software from different vendors is not easy. People talk about APIs, they talk about data models. It ain't that easy, okay? It's a very complex challenge. You need a systems integrator to take end-to-end responsibility for the solution in terms of not just reliability, but performance and on-site support. So coming at this in terms of multi-vendor, plug-and-play solutions, it's not going to just be pick up a piece of open source software and plug it into another piece of open source software and deploy it onto a standards-based sled. Okay, there's a lot more to it. And what I keep saying to Jeff is, don't bring me 100 software partners. Bring me the 5 or 6 that really matter, because we need to pre-integrate with those guys. We need to measure performance with those guys, and we need to demonstrate end-to-end reliability with those guys and robustness. Okay, because I honestly believe that it's going to be down to a small number of software vendors who collaborate to provide different types of software solutions who will ultimately win at the end of the day. Okay, I think just a summary slide here. What I'm saying is that we're very firm in our belief about some things. We're open-minded and a little bit at sea to some extent with others. We want to use the OCP to help us answer those questions that we're not sure of right now. Whether it's multi-vendor testing, whether it's procurement models in the end customer, whether it's the channel dynamics of the systems integrated channel. So we'll be reaching out to the OCP through Dirk, through Bill, through partners like Andrew to see if we can move that forward. Okay, use cases we've covered, and as I said, leading edge computing is our new tagline. So if you have any questions about that, you can see me afterwards. But thanks for your time and attention.